What's your biggest phobia? What scares you to the very core? Story 1. You know those videos of people crawling deep into extremely narrow caves? That. And to be clear, I'm not scared of other small spaces, nor the dark. But something about the idea of being surrounded by utterly immovable rock and not being able to move anymore. Ugh. Story 2. Cockroaches. I know they can't harm you and that I'm so much taller compared to them, but those things scare me to my very core, especially when you live in the South and have the much larger kind that come in your house that you have to spray for often. Answer: yep, that's me. Moved from a big city to an island in the Atlantic. Cockroaches are unavoidable here. What helped me to some degree is the following reasoning. We are disgusted and scared of cockroaches because when we live in a city, in an apartment, cockroaches mean an infestation, and an infestation signifies unsanitary conditions, dangerous to our health. So it makes total sense to be scared of them. They do mean trouble. Over here, when I see them, it means nothing of the sort. They're a natural part of the ecosystem. I live in a house. They come to visit and go away. There's nothing I can do. Yes, the visceral response is there, but it's not useful anymore. There's no infestation, no danger. Story 3. Passing. Not the process of dying, but rather the non-existence that comes after. 5 days ago, this realization suddenly hit me that one day this consciousness that I am will be gone. I have not been the same since. It is constantly on my mind. I cannot shake it. I go to sleep with it and wake up with it. I really hope it does not stay. None of the usual rationalizations help, like, I didn't mind not being born. I won't mind non-existence after I am dead. In fact, that all just makes it worse somehow. I just feel in constant terror about it. It feels truly like I have realized something I should not have, and I just want to go back to the reality where I hadn't yet. For the first time in my 32 years on Earth, I woke up thinking, oh, it wasn't a nightmare. This is real, and the feeling of dread is still there. Answer: passing is legitimately terrifying, especially so if you are a critical thinker and understand that it is the end of your existence. No other explanation makes any sense when assessed logically. But you probably are suffering from OCD and anxiety. I have suffered from OCD for 27 years straight. It started when I was in 6th grade. I have had multiple months-long spiked rumination cycles about passing that were unimaginably terrifying. The first really bad one was in 2008, and the second even worse one was in 2023. They were both very, very frightening. And honestly, both permanently traumatized me and damaged my ability to be optimistic or passionate about living. But it is definitely an OCD symptom. People without OCD aren't happy about passing, but it doesn't become a months-long moment-to-moment panic and rumination cycle. So please get help if you can access it. I'm so sorry you are going through this. Story 4. Locked-in syndrome. Had a taste of it after a C-section. They gave me substances and told me it would help with the pain so I could sleep. Nope. I could hear everything and everyone talking and feel every pulse of pain, but could not move or scream or anything. It was probably the scariest hour of my life. Don't actually know how long it was, but your mind goes to weird places when you're in so much pain and can't move. Story 5. Not getting my girlfriend to the ER in time if she ODs. It's literally my worst fear, and I almost lived it in December. Finding a good hospital near me is hard, and usually we have to go 20 minutes away. I'm praying she stays healthy and clean from self-harm. She's my world. I refuse to lose her. Story 6. So IDK, what it could be called, but to paint a picture for you, being in the ocean and having a gigantic ship coming right at me. If you watch Leave the World Behind and see the scene where the ship comes to shore, The angle it shows looking up at the ship is exactly my biggest fear. IDKY, but yay fudge that. Story 7. Falling into the sky. Have you ever lay on your back on a clear day and stared at the sky for a while? I've done that a couple of times in my life, and at some point I would lose my sense of up and down and have a sudden fear of falling up. It's a weird feeling, but that endless abyss is terrifying. Story 8. Large, fast-moving wheels or gears. I can't explain the crippling anxiety this causes me. Things like carousels, big moving gears for things like large ships. There's a scene in Titanic where they are speeding up the ship and those big lever things in the boiler room start going fast. That just terrifies me. I don't even like thinking about the wheels on semi-trucks. Can't explain it. Story 9. If there is a phobia for not having true autonomy, that. I hit my first level of not being at that stage a few months ago by getting a more stable job, but I am still in the process of reaching the next level, getting a car, so I can go wherever the fudge I want to, when I want to. The next is moving into my own house without rent taking half of my paycheck. I am also scared of not being able to breathe. I can hold my breath underwater for 15 to 20s, but if I feel even one bit of pressure in my chest, I'm going back up. Story 10. Lightning. Being struck while briefly and unavoidably having to be in an open space during a thunderstorm. Not exactly sure why it's been exacerbated by age or why the southeastern state I live in seems to attract the most violent ones, but I could almost poop. Story 11. Drowning. You don't die because you hold your breath so long you pass out. You die because you can't hold your breath any longer, breathe in water and suffocate, all while knowing you are going to die. Seems like a horrible, horrible, horrible way to die. Story 12. This is going to sound really stupid compared to some of the other comments, but stairs get me, man. It's so bad, they make my legs weak and give me tunnel vision. I avoid them at all costs, especially now that I have a weak knee that makes traversing them more difficult. Story 13. Anger. Someone being mad at me, and especially without explaining why they're mad. I am already scared of loud sudden noises and disappointment, so having someone yell at me and be visibly disappointed in me makes me absolutely terrified. When I get yelled at, it takes me days, sometimes months to recover from it. I'm also scared of my own anger. I'm scared that I might disappoint someone if I show the slightest anger towards them. When I do show anger, which rarely happens, I apologize over and over as if I did something unforgivable. I'm absolutely terrified of any sign of anger, as small as it is. Story 14. Rats mice. My mother told me I was in a crib at a friend of theirs' house apparently, and a rat was crawling up my crib. OMG, just the thought is freaking me out. Apparently, our dog Skeeter attacked it and eliminated it before it got to me. Our son said to me, "Do you have the phobia because of this happening? Or were you too young to remember and you have the phobia because your mom told you that's what happened?" I don't know, but I am so terrified I saw a mouse in the house and slept in my husband's work van for 3 months. I couldn't stand the thought of them crawling on me. Just thinking about this is about sending me into a panic attack. Story 15. I have fairly mild claustrophobia, but it gets worse if I think about being trapped. Worst of all, and this can sometimes give me trouble getting back to sleep, if my subconscious is being a real jerk in my dreams, being buried alive, not in a box, but inhaling the dirt while I suffocate. When I had my MRI and they asked if I had claustrophobia, I told them no. I almost panicked during the process when I said to myself, this isn't so bad. It could be worse if stop that. When they pulled me out, they told me that I had done a very good job of holding still. I told them that was because I did have claustrophobia, but if I told them that they would have pulled me back out and then stuck me back in again. I found out later that putting something over your eyes allows you to pretend that the open space above you is empty, not 6 inches from your nose. That helped a lot. Edited for clarity. Story 16. My kids in water, even with a life jacket on, I just picture them slipping out of the jacket and sinking like a rock. Gives me the worst heebie-jeebies of my life. I've made my son take swim lessons 3 summers in a row because of it. My daughter is too young for swim lessons, but next summer she'll be taking them too. Story 17. Being in a public aquarium with the possibility of one of the tanks breaking and all those live fish being around me. Likelihood probably none, but the chance of it happening to me? None. I just don't go there. Story 18. Mirrors. Ever since I was little, I've always felt like there's something watching me from the other side of the glass. There was a time when I refused to go into a public bathroom alone if there was nobody else in there because I didn't want to be surrounded by mirrors by myself. I still won't have a mirror in my bedroom. Can't sleep at all with one in there. The worst are those full-length ones. Story 19. I'm afraid of centipedes. Them things scare the shoot out of me. All those legs they have, especially if you wake up and see one on your ceiling, you be too scared too. Throw a shoe at it and you miss. And now you gotta keep your nightlight on until you find the bastard. Story 20. Heights and pregnant people pregnancy. Museophobia, tocophobia. Like being someone who is a biologist, I know logically that a pregnant person belly is going to pop like a water balloon. But I am terrified of pregnant people when they are around me, as well as even the thought of becoming pregnant. Mad respect for those that do become pregnant, want to. It just freaks me out. Story 21. Absolutely nothing other than wasps and hornets. And I have somewhat of a proof. One time in my nan's house I was taking a dump, and between my feet from under the porcelain of the throne, a huge black scorpion emerged and ran towards the cabinets in front of me. I only saw it once. It was already between my feet, and it did literally nothing to me. Same thing happened with 2 huge centipedes in that same place. When we arrived, Mum and I cleaned out the sofas to prep them for sleeping, and 2 enormous centipedes came crawling up the part you rest your back against when you sit. My mum almost fainted, but my heart didn't skip a beat. From that moment on, I was the brave one of the family. That was until a single wasp landed on my toasty when we were at a taverna the next day. No clue what the fudge happened to me, but the souls of all my ancestors all cried in unison that the wasp now formally and thoroughly had laid claim to the entire table, and that I ought to get up and walk away. So that's what I do when a wasp says hi. Bees are bros. Don't do a thing to me. Wasps are nature's joke. Story 22. Pregnancy and childbirth. If I ever get pregnant and I can't terminate, I'm eliminate myself, and I'm being so serious. People think I'm being silly when I say I have a massive fear of being pregnant, but it's true. Story 23. Even after living 7 decades, I still freak out with bees. However, there was a time, long ago, when I was able to escape my captors in a military exercise and run and jump into the only bush in a field. Needless to say, it was full of flowers and honeybees. Somehow I just squatted there and watched the bees fly around, totally not interested in me. Eventually, I crawled out and continued my escape. Still dislike bees flying around me. Story 24. I have this fear that one day something will happen with my dog. I've seen some videos where one day dogs will just suddenly not be able to stand or will not be able to walk. Like one day, totally fine, then something glitches. My dog is 10, literally my best friend. Story 25. Nuclear bombs. Apparently, there is a phobia for it, but I have a beyond unnatural fear of the way they look and the potential they have for extinction-level events. I suppose it's the mix of bomb sirens, mushroom clouds, and just vaporizing that scares me to my soul. Story 26. I guess it would be cave exploration, especially underwater cave exploration. Just imagine the batteries of your lights die or stuck between the walls without being able to move. But on more daily basis in life, it's the fear of height. Story 27. Fire. Being burnt alive, mainly because I was in a house fire when I was 19 and have PTSD from it. The smell, the heat, everything sends me into a complete shutdown. I also genuinely fear passing, the whole non-existence thing. Story 28. Seems stupid, but conflict. I'm terrible for conflict avoidance, and the thought of conflict stresses me out so much. It seems silly, and in a way it is. But I gear that more than heights or water or anything rational. Just the thought of an argument or someone raising their voice at me sends me heart racing. Story 29. This might seem weird, but one of my biggest fears is being accused of plagiarism, which ironically is a word I struggle to spell. It's plagued my university career, and as an aspiring writer, is an ongoing concern. Just the word makes me quite anxious, and in intense moments, I don't know how I'm going to go forward in a world where it exists. Story 30. People just deciding to leave one day, whether it's emotionally detaching, socially ending things, or, well, the big D. Also, the underlying fear that my presence is a burden on people around me and given full freedom from their inner niceness or, people-pleasing on extreme cases. They'd leave me faster than I could form this thought. So, yay. Story 31. My biggest fear is reaching a point in life where my parents are no longer around. They've sacrificed so much for me, and the thought of not being able to spoil them or make them proud while I still can is something that really weighs on me. It drives a lot of my decisions and work ethic. I want to use the time I have now to build a stable, meaningful career, not just for myself, but so I can give back to them while they're here to enjoy it. Story 32. Dad died in 2023, right after he turned 70. I was 26, and it was always my biggest fear to lose my parents. Now that I've experienced the devastating grief of losing one, it's amped my fear up to the max when it comes to my mother. Story 33. Yeah, it's not fun, especially if it's random and not something you knew was happening, like a disease or something. Just getting woken up in the night to see she never made it home, then finding out she was eliminated. Then having to go through court and legal issues trying to get the person who eliminated them held responsible, and then they don't even get 10 years. But you lost your mom of 31 years? Darn, this is the second time I had commented about this today. I'm sorry, y'all. Story 34. I'm close to my mama still, and she died a year and a half ago. I didn't even consider losing her as a fear since I figured she would grow old and die predictably. It's good you have this awareness so you can go hug your mama. The pain of our separation is softened by my belief in heaven and my own role as a mother. For as a mother, I know that not even passing could stop me from stalking my children and doing all I could for them. So if she's still around somewhere, she's very close. Story 35. I've lost both of my parents, and I miss them and think about them every day. But it is the way of life. As hard as it is, it's also inevitable. Cherish the moments you have available to you with the people you love. Story 36. Been there, went through it. Biggest meaning about it is when you truly know you're truly incapable changing anything about the situation while you witness their decline in real time as they battle cancer and do with all the side effects of chemo, seeing little by little there's things they want to do but can't anymore as their own quality of life just degrades in ways that make the most iron-willed souls weep. Story 37. Specifically, deep ocean water. I was playing Ark and I was driving my raft around just having a good time. Then I rotated the camera and saw a Meg right under me and I had a visceral reaction. I can't play Subnautica. It gives me a fight-or-flight body buzz when I see people sitting on the edge of a tall building or cliff with their legs dangling off the side. Even thinking about it makes me uncomfortable. Story 38. Same. It's so bad that I get vertigo at basically no height at all. Fun story. I was interning at a veterinary hospital and during a dental procedure, a bloody piece of gauze got caught in the drill. As it spun around very fast, it flung droplets of blood all around. I got the task of cleaning the ceiling. So there I am, just looking up and cleaning while standing on a chair, and when I was done, I looked down and get dizzy and weak in the knees. After a few minutes of just standing there, the vet walks in and I tell her, I have a very bad fear of height, and I can't get down from the chair. 2 older colleagues helped me, a shaking mid-20s woman, down from a chair. Story 39. When I can't see the bottom, I literally have everything in my body and soul telling me to get out. I lived next to the sea and had no issues until watching a documentary about sharks and how they hunt. Story 40. As someone who struggles with OCD, this was my biggest fear and it consumed me. I even refused to step outside my house in case something like this were to happen. It took me some time to break away from this, but I promise it gets better. Story 41. It's called PHOBIA. For me, it gets triggered if I think about being inside a pipe. I figured that out when my uncle told me about how he used to do inspections on pipelines before they went into service back in the 70s. He'd spend hours crawling in and out and around long, relatively small pipes, and it just gave me the jeebs. Story 42. I read about Nutty Putty Cave incident. It's just most horrible way to go, slowly losing all your consciousness while you cannot even move an inch, feeling massive pressure of rocks pressing on your various body parts and vision slowly blacking out. Edit grammar. Story 43. This happened to me. I was at a stoplight waiting to turn right. There was a lot of traffic, so I was watching the traffic till I could go, and when it finally cleared, I pushed in the gas, right as a kid on a bike started crossing the street in front of me. I didn't even think to look to my right, and even though the crosswalk had a stop for pedestrians, he went anyway. Thankfully, because I had been stopped, it wasn't too bad, but enough to bruise his leg and hurt his bike. It literally was the worst day of my life. I cried for like 3 days straight. Story 44. Yep, that's me. Moved from a big city to an island in the Atlantic. Cockroaches are unavoidable here. What helped me, to some degree, is the following reasoning. We are disgusted and scared of cockroaches because when we live in a city in an apartment, cockroaches mean an infestation, and an infestation signifies unsanitary conditions, dangerous to our health. So it makes total sense to be scared of them. They do mean trouble. Over here, when I see them, it means nothing of the sort. They're a natural part of the ecosystem. I live in a house. They come to visit and go away. There's nothing I can do. Yes, the visceral response is there, but it's not useful anymore. There's no infestation, no danger. Story 45. Passing is legitimately terrifying, especially so if you are a critical thinker and understand that it is the end of your existence. No other explanation makes any sense when assessed logically. But you probably are suffering from OCD and anxiety. I have suffered from OCD for 27 years straight. It started when I was in 6th grade. I have had multiple months-long spiked rumination cycles about passing that were unimaginably terrifying. The first really bad one was in 2008, and the second even worse one was in 2023. They were both very, very frightening, and honestly both permanently traumatized me and damaged my ability to be optimistic or passionate about living. But it is definitely an OCD symptom. People without OCD aren't happy about passing, but it doesn't become a months-long moment-to-moment panic and rumination cycle. So please, get help if you can access it. I'm so sorry you are going through this. Story 46. I think after this realization, I have fallen into an OCD situation of constantly thinking about that, and the second part of losing someone close. I feel I'm not able to enjoy the smaller things at times. I wish I can be the best person before I go. What if that's how they'll remember me, or vice versa? What if this is the last time I'm with them? I wish I would wake up not having to feel that way all the time. Story 47. 32 and only 5 days ago you had this realization? That's lucky. I'm mid-30s as well and realized this at 16, fudged me up for like 2 weeks. Real talk, go do some shrooms, or like salvia or something, it'll fix you right up. Answer. I have done heroic doses multiple times in my life, last one few years ago. It got me out of a deep depression twice in my life when nothing else could. I have no doubt it can do that. Nowadays, I microdose, mostly because it helps me think better for my job. Heck, I have like 50 Green dried just laying around from my last grow still. But I fear that if in this condition I go on a full-on trip, it might somehow make it worse, or I won't get any answers and be pushed into a deeper hole because of it. Then again, it might help. EDK man. Story 48. Welcome to my entire existence. The part of brains that walls this realization off never fully formed in my head. I've had OCD, anxiety disorder, and crippling panic attacks since I was 10 years old, 42 now, and every time. It's like the wall cracks open momentarily, and that thought flash floods my brain, so I'm running around in abject horror for 2 to 3 months until the little brain maintenance men can duct tape it up temporarily until the next time. In the meantime, that's what Xanax is for. Story 49. I feel you, Pretzel. It started when I was about your age. I'm 44 now. I would just lie there at night thinking about how there's nothing to compare passing to. Sleep? No, you wake up and can dream. Medically put under for surgery or something? You just drop out cold, but then immediately wake up. A few times a year, I will lie there in bed and think about it and how fudge unfair it is. I didn't ask to be born, yet I have to eventually die. It's a big reason I will never have kids. I wouldn't want to put someone through that. Doesn't matter if you have the best or worst possible life, you still die. I'll lie there and get unreasonably mad and almost cry and just say out loud, angrily, "No!" It's not fudge fair, and get an absolute fear of dread and inevitability. It passes, but lingers for a while. If I had one wish, it would be that there was something guaranteed beyond this life. Something peaceful where my spirit can reside and reflect on the life I lived. But the logical part of my brain knows there's nothing. The human brain can't comprehend nothingness like that. I dislike when people are like, it'll be just like it was before you were born. That's some bullshit. I have no memory of not existing, but then I came into existence. Going from not knowing to not knowing is not the same. You can't unlearn things you've experienced, and not at the scale at life. I dislike that I'll never get to know what happens to humanity. that I'll never get to see serious space travel. It's all so depressing, and I don't know how to handle it. I hope it gets better for you, friend. Story 50. I always take a list, even if it's nonsense written down. I put a hat on, head in the store, grab my cart, eyes on the list, earbuds in, do not make eye contact with anyone. That's the only way I can get through the store without knowing someone in my small town. Story 51. Cracks knuckles, I was working at a local grocer for a while, bagging items for shoppers some years ago. One of my high school teachers was one of these shoppers and remembered me. I wasn't sure whether to give the shoppers a front row seat to an impromptu tragic end attempt or leave town. Story 52. Pro musician here, this is a huge part of what drives me. My music will live on long after me. It'll still be in the online music stores, even if nobody is buying it. It'll still occasionally pop into people's radio stations and playlists. There aren't words for how much that relieves me sometimes, and how important it is to remind myself of that to keep going. Story 53. If you want to change this mindset, I highly recommend the book, The Psalm of the Wild-Built. It's a beautiful story about a tea monk and a robot. It's also quite short, so if you're not much of a reader, it's still very easy to finish. In the US, you can probably get it from your local library or download the audiobook for free through the Libby app. Story 54. I feel like the smallest things count too, not just the big achievements, like having a good relationship with ourselves, extending that to our friendships, romantic relationships, work colleagues, and anyone we come across. Of course, our potential may lie way further ahead into making that big impact, but each day counts as well. And Story 55. I am so sorry you experienced this, and I'm glad you're feeling better now. This is my greatest fear. The only way you can communicate is by moving your eyes, being completely awake, aware, but unable to do anything. Answer: I was hospitalized at 17 with GBS, total paralysis in the ICU, medically induced coma for 6 days. The only way I could communicate was with my eyes, so my parents put letters on a poster board, often made requests on the other side, like "I'm hot, in pain," etc. They would point to each item when they arrived on what I wanted. It'd blink my eyes. It was scary as hell and something that I will never forget. Had to relearn to walk. PT, OT, speech therapy. This was in the late 90s. I still have PTSD from the experience. 1 month in the hospital, plus 2 weeks inpatient physical therapy, followed by 6 months of outpatient therapy. Story 56. I had this happen momentarily after a pain med. Thankfully, it only lasted like 30 seconds to 1 min. But I was like in a trance. I could hear the nurses talking to me, and my mom's panicked voice when I wouldn't respond. I could see everything, but I couldn't talk. It was wild. Story 57. Yes, I swear I drowned in a former life because I can swim very well. But deep water freaks me to the point I've had panic attacks. One of my proudest moments was completing an open water swim in a short triathlon. I had to do the backstroke because I couldn't put my head underwater, and I came out of the water third to last. But man, I was psyched that I completed that.